Hi everybody, I wanted to talk today a little bit about bar chords. Everyone looks at bar chords and freaks out, thinks they're hard, thinks their fingers can't stretch, it hurts too much, any excuse you can find not to play a bar chord. The point is bar chords though are incredibly useful, incredibly versatile, and they just give you a voicing which is really useful quite often. So I'm going to use a pretty standard progression to talk about the bar chords. And you can use this progression anywhere in the fretboard. But let's first think about what you're trying to do with a bar chord. If you take our easiest bar chord, which would be one finger, first fret, right? It's not really a bar, but think about I'm just pressing one finger down with my thumb behind the first string. Okay, it's a C7 chord. If I now take a partial bar that you actually already know, say a 2-string partial bar, maybe C5. Again, I'm going to keep my thumb behind the neck, pretty much behind my index finger. Might start to slide up against the fret wire a bit, because I don't need as much pressure when I do that. Then let's look at a 3-finger partial bar that you already know. Say, well, we could stay with that one. Say a C minor chord. So that would be 0, 3, 3, 3. Now, I'm trying to stay fairly parallel to the fret wire, so I'm not turning my finger this way, it's staying parallel to the fret wire and right up against the fret wire. Now we can obviously drop that back to a G major 7 or a B flat minor 6. Right, but you know all those chords already. They're pretty straightforward chords. So what is so difficult then about us moving to the 4th string? Well, you can already do the 4th string more often than not, such as a C minor 7. Now I'm still squeezing behind the neck in the same place. But now I'm using more of my finger. So the problem we've got is we've got these creases in our fingers, and we've got to make sure those creases don't sit on top of a string. Because if they sit on top of a string, we're going to get this, right? Where the string isn't fully depressed across the fret wire. So you may have to move in or out, so closer to your chin or closer to the floor with your finger to get good contact with the fleshy part of your finger. Now down in this part of the fretboard, you should be using the fleshy part of your finger and pushing the bony part, so the side, up against that fret wire. Now these fingers, I'm just trying to keep them out of the way so you can see what I'm doing, but you'd normally just keep these fingers loosely over the frets, as you would for any other chord. Some of you might actually use the middle finger to push down on this index finger to help with contact. And that's perfectly okay when you're playing a full bar and nothing else. But when we start to use our other fingers, this becomes quite problematic using this technique. But certainly for just playing the minor 7ths all the way up the fretboard, using that finger and putting the other one on top is perfectly acceptable. So first thing to practice is, how do I get the right contact across the strings, all 4 strings, in the right position so that the creases on my finger are not sitting over a string. Remembering up against the fret wire is the easiest way to do this. It requires the least pressure. Alright, now we're going to go and start using our other fingers. So the minor 7th, pretty easy bar chord, doesn't require that much effort. And if you're pushing really hard, you're going to get a sore arm. So back off the pressure just enough, just so you can stop the frets buzzing and you get a nice clear sound from every string. Right, let's look at some other ones now. If we think about what we do when we play an A7 chord, we play our index finger usually on the 1st fret of the 3rd string. Now if we don't use that finger but instead use our middle finger, and we just loosely lay this index finger behind the nut. So you can see, not doing anything, just relaxed, sitting there quietly. Right? The pressure's all on this finger here. This is the one that's giving me the A7. This is just relaxed at the back. So start playing an A7 and add the pressure to that middle finger. it's going to be a new sensation for you because you're used to using your index finger instead of this middle finger. Now take that same shape, move it up 1 fret, still maintain the maximum pressure on this middle finger, but just a little bit of pressure now on the index finger, right up against the fret wire like you were doing before. But it doesn't require as much pressure as the middle finger does. Alright, so that'll be my next step in learning the bar chords, is to take the A7 and move it up. That's going to give you a dominant 7th all the way up the fretboard. Now in some of my other videos I call that the A shape, because if you look at the A7, the A of A7 is actually sitting on the A string. If we came up to the 3rd fret, the A string would be now a C, and we'd have a C7. So we'll call that the A shape, because the name of the chord is on the A string. Alright, let's look at another one very similar to that, maybe our C7. So we can lie our finger on the back again, just gently behind the nut, putting maximum pressure on this next finger, now on the 1st fret of the 1st string. Same thing, we can move it up. You notice I don't need to use these other fingers at all. I mean, I'm keeping them tucked away so you can see my fingering, but I don't have to rest over the top on that finger. I can't actually do it on that finger to make a good bar. So that'll be my next one to practice. And then the one that's the most important, I think, is when you lay your finger across the back and you play an A minor chord, but you play the A minor chord with your ring finger. So I'm going to use my ring finger on the 2nd fret of the 4th string and lay my finger across the back. Now when I move that one up, and I've got to apply pressure to this finger, move it up, I'm getting minor chords all the way up the neck. So that's a B minor, C minor, C sharp, D minor. You notice I'm trying to keep this bar right up against the fret and pressure on this finger only. You'll notice my thumb is pretty much behind, can I try it that way? It's pretty much behind my index finger most of the time. Alright, so from that shape, that minor shape, we can now use this middle finger to make a major chord by dropping it down on the next fret up from the bar on the 2nd string. Take it off, we go back to a minor chord. Make the major chord. Right? Now, you want to give your hand a bit of a rest at times, because if you get too much tension, this is going to start getting sore. So if you feel a bit of tension, stop, take a break, do something else. So just to recap on that last one, A minor, lay my finger at the back, drop this finger down on the next fret up from the bar on the 2nd string. In this case we go from A minor to F, move it up 1 fret, I have a B flat minor to an F sharp chord, go up 1 more, have a B minor to a G chord. Now once I've got this major chord like G, I can just move that shape up the fretboard and I get new major chords. So quite often the sequence that you'll see is the minor chord, like B minor, to the G major, up to the A chord. So up 2 frets, and back to B minor. Now one of the songs we do in the ukulele workshop is I Get Around by the Beach Boys, and we actually go from memory F sharp. So we start at the back. So there's our minor shape, drop my finger down to give me the F sharp major chord, to B minor, take my finger off and keep the minor shape, drop the finger back down to get G, and then we use E7. So look at that one again, we have F sharp, up to B minor, to G, an E7. Now, the piece that I'm talking about, I Get Around, actually then modulates, so changes key one semitone higher. So we take exactly the same shapes we just had and move everything up one fret. So F sharp becomes G. So we start with G, we go up to C minor, drop our finger down to get to A flat, to F7. So look at that one again. We start on G, up to C minor. So always keeping this minor shape. Drop our finger back down to give us A flat. And then the F7. Alright, so try and practice the bar chords. It does take a lot more strength to keep those bars down, and I really do stress that if you are getting sore or tired fingers, to rest this left hand between sessions. Right? Wring your hand out if you need to. Right? Get the blood going back into it, and try and get rid of the tension as much as you can. And try and do it with as least pressure as possible. So find out, experiment, where do I need to put my finger this way across the fretboard, and how much pressure do I need behind so that I'm not actually really gripping tightly onto the fretboard. Now, depending on how you're holding your ukulele, you may find that if you're actually squeezing in with your arm, on your forearm, on your right side, by pushing back with your finger and not your thumb, you actually don't use a lot of pressure down, and the thumb just rests at the back. So the pressure's actually happening here, not over here. If I make the B minor shape and don't use this arm, I've actually got to squeeze much harder. So my hand's right away. I'm really squeezing now to make that. As soon as I pull this ukulele in, I have a natural reverse pressure thing happening where it's going out, my finger comes back to pull it back, and my thumb just sits at the back. It's a much more relaxed position. Now, as I say, this is a really useful shape, particularly that minor one. You're going to have to practice that, but by simply dropping your finger down on the second string, you get the major chords. Really useful if you want to move up the scale. So this sort of, that's G to A to D, right? Now compare that to going lots more moving around of my wrist compared to, it's the same shape, just sliding up. All right, that's enough for now. See how you go with those bar chords. They're not difficult, but they do require a little bit of strength and some exercises to get you on your way. Don't be afraid of them. Okay, see you later. Bye-bye.